If I had to identify one key factor that shaped my early relationship to Israeli society, it would be an inferiority complex. I was an Iraqi boy in a land of Europeans. Perhaps surprisingly, in my early years, this did not engender a rebellious streak. On the contrary, the status quo seemed the natural order of things. I unquestioningly accepted the social hierarchy that placed European Jews at the top of the pile and the Jews of the Arab and African lands at the bottom. Nor did I believe that I had any special abilities or talents that Israeli society failed to recognize. I entirely lacked the burning sense of injustice that may propel some marginalized children to prove themselves. I saw myself as an ordinary boy with some handicaps and limitations and no prospect of a bright future. I was lazy, apathetic, alienated from my environment, but at the same time resigned to my fate. The notion of pulling myself up by the bootstraps was totally alien to my whole way of thinking. At that time, I had no idea that being an Iraqi in Israel might have advantages as well as disadvantages. The main advantage for me in later life was the ability to transcend national stereotypes and to take a more balanced, if not detached, view of the Arab-Israeli conflict. This is no ordinary conflict. It is one of the most bitter, protracted, and intractable conflicts of modern times and spawns intense passions and partisanship on both sides of the divide. Israeli schools and the media to this day promote a skewed version of the conflict in which Israel can do no wrong and the Arabs can do no right. Arab schools and the Arab media similarly purvey a black and white picture which casts the Palestinians as the innocent victims and the Jews, a term often used interchangeably with Israelis, as selfish, cruel, and unscrupulous villains, as uniquely evil. Both sides believe fervently in the justice of their cause. Both adhere to a narrow narrative of history which, like most nationalist narratives, is often simplistic, selective, self-righteous, and self-serving. Having lived as a young child in an Arab country, I was aware of the possibility of peaceful Arab-Jewish coexistence. I could see Arabs not just as an enemy, but as a people, worthy of recognition and dignity. My Iraqi background thus helped me, as I grew up, to develop a more nuanced view, based on empathy for all the parties locked into this tragic conflict. In this respect, I was not typical. A significant number of Iraqi Jews who moved to Israel became Arab-spurning, right-wing nationalists. In my youth, I flirted with right-wing ideas, as I shall describe later. There is no way of telling how I might have developed politically and ideologically had I stayed in Israel. In any case, the right-wing phase in my life was short-lived. Distance from Israel bred in me a more independent and reflective attitude towards Israeli society. The years I spent as a university student in England in the aftermath of the June 1967 war enabled me to see beyond simple certainties and to acquire a more critical perspective on nationalism in general and a more sophisticated understanding of the diverse ingredients that make up the Arab-Israeli conflict. Nationalism, it gradually dawned on me, lies at the heart of most international conflicts. The trouble with nationalism, as Marilyn Monroe wrote in her scrapbook, is that it stops us thinking. This book is a personal story of a young Iraqi Jew told by a professional historian. It recounts my early life up to the age of 18 in Iraq, Israel, and England, but from the vantage point of a scholar of the Arab-Israeli conflict. Virginia Woolf observed that many memoirs are failures because they leave out the person to whom things happened. Here, the impressionable little boy and the troubled teenager are at the center of the story, but the backdrop to the drama is filled in by the mature scholar. My personal experience is used to illustrate and illuminate a much bigger story, the story of the Jewish exodus from Iraq, following the establishment of the State of Israel in 1948.